fear and faith both demand of us to believe in something that hasn't yet happened. This is like so simple but mind-blowing, right? Like, wow, it's true.
Yeah.
If I know it, if it's already in the known, then I don't fear it. I might hate it, I might dislike it, I might resist it in any way, but there's no room for fear because I already know it. We fear what we don't know, right? It's the reaction that we have to the unknown that we fear would go wrong, would be bad, and so both fear and faith demands of us to believe in something that hasn't yet happened. Either we believe that it's going to be bad, or we have faith and believe that it's going to be okay or better than that.
Welcome, Shimrit. I am so honored to have you on the podcast today. And I really feel like this conversation is going to benefit so many people. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. I'm really excited for the conversation we're about to have.
Yes, absolutely. So what I want to get into, because something that really struck me about you is the ability to make transitions in your life. And I find that so many people who listen to this, they want something different in their life, but there's like that fear of like, how do I leave my job? How do I make those changes and still be able to like support my family, support myself, and do all that? Can you talk about your story? Because I found that to be so inspirational and how you made a lot of transitions in your life and have found success in that. And just, I would love for you to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I have made a few major transitions. That's true. I guess early on that was easier because I was younger and I didn't have a family that I was, supporting. It was only just supporting myself. But still, these were really major transitions, like leaving everything behind and all of my belongings and my flat and a lot of relationships that I have with friends and family to go out and live outdoors and off grid for a few years. So, this was one of those transitions that were easier in the sense that I didn't have yet a family. I was in my 20s, but it was a really big jump into the unknown, which is a term or a concept that I will circle back to in a moment, because that's the major thing here, right? It's like what you said, not knowing how you're going to support your family or yourself. And it's that unknown, right? Like we have a secure job or we have a setting or circumstances that we are familiar with and we know what to expect and we know how to predict the future, which is something that we feel we need for our survival, and we're kind of programmed to that. And it at the same time does not allow us to step into the unknown where everything we want that is not yet existing in our reality awaits us, right? So that's the main thing here, basically. And it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. I've seen people make such transitions even very late in life. But yeah, that was the first, I guess, really major transition that I've made. And then from that life, transitioning back to, civilization, following my passion with music. So this is now a second kind of major concept in this, which is to follow the passion, right? So it's to follow the passion, and that necessarily leads us to the unknown, because what we desire and we're passionate about and we want to expand into and include in our reality and in our experiences is in that unknown. So first I followed my passion to live in nature, and there's a whole story around that transition. And then I followed my passion that I have found in nature, or that I found my way to it while I was living out in nature. And that was music, and specifically the instrument I majored in, which is the flute. And so over the years of living outdoors, I taught myself how to play the flute and how to play music. And I became so very passionate about it. And I knew that I wanted that to be my professional path. And that required me to, go to university and study and coach with great mentors and teachers and collaborate with other people and everything that you do, as a professional in any field almost. And so that's what I did. And I went to university. in my very late 20s. But then after 3 years there, another passion was already burning very strongly within my musical expression and career at that point, but very different from what I was studying, because I was on the jazz trajectory, which is very mental and analytical and specific. And there was another voice coming through, my own voice, first of all. So I started singing, which was something that I've never done before. And now I'm like around my 30s. And this voice started coming out physically and also like emotionally and spiritually, like my true voice and songs and lyrics and like my true self-expression, which was very different from the route, the musical professional kind of trajectory I was on. So I stopped my studies and I quit in the middle of the university, of the music academy, to really just find my voice and write my music and, you know, find my individual and authentic and unique path and expression, which I did. I did major eventually, but I came back as a composer and as a singer, and that was what I graduated with. And yeah, and then I was on my musical path and career for many, many years, almost 20 years. And I became a mom, and we relocated to a different country and culture and language, which is a transition in and of itself. And then, you know, in my very late 30s, there was this, again, other passion that was burning stronger and stronger, which I always had. Like the seed of that was always there, and I was aware of it. I actually started going to university before transitioning into living in nature. I actually went to study psychology when I was 20 years old, but I didn't like the environment and the structure of it. But as I'm sharing that just to say, this other passion was always there, to work with people in a setting similar to what I do today as a coach, right? So to really help people find their own unique expression and their own, you know, overcome their own kind of doubts and fears and self-sabotage patterns, and really find their own authentic expression and create, you know, the life they want. And heal everything that there is to heal along that, you know, transformational journey. And so this passion started burning very, very strong. And I realized that I have to leave, or kind of, yeah, let go of my musical career, which was probably the biggest transition I've made. First of all, this is now, yes, I'm 40 years old. I have a family. So now we're really reaching the point where you were talking about. This was my career. I was a teacher. I had a, you know, very specific way to earn my income. And I was also very committed to my career. I was always a go-getter and a hustler, and, you know, collaborations, recording, performing, touring, doing all of that. So I was very passionate and action oriented and focused. And so to just decide to let all that go without really knowing what I'm going to do, I wasn't even clear of what I wanted to do. It's not that I didn't know how it's going to work or if it's going to succeed. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew that it has to be something to do with people, helping people, that, you know, that lifelong passion that I mentioned, but I had no idea in what setting. And I just had to trust and be still, you know, just slow down from all the action and let go of what was not anymore, and step fully into the unknown and just wait for the guidance from universe, higher self, that you know, that we can only receive when we are still and open to receive and willing to be in that unknown, right? Because when you ask is when you don't know, and then you can receive an answer. But we usually are really not comfortable with just asking and not receiving the answer. And that in that buffer, in that void, between asking and receiving, whether it's answers or manifestations of any kind, that's when we get all tripped tripped
Yeah.
out, tripped off, and you know what I mean. So yeah, I did that for a while, a lot of meditation, a lot of working with my dreams, a lot of just journaling, um and the clarity started to come. The vision started to receive more and more details and more direction and more certainty. And I started studying and receiving all kinds of certifications. And I had already my toolkit of my own healing journey and transformational journey. You know, over the years, I've done a lot of work for myself, and also a lot of experience as a teacher. So all that came together, and I started working as a coach, and that led me to want to do that in a bigger scale.
Mhm.
And then I started my business. Yeah, in my almost 40s.
Amazing. I definitely want to hear more about the business aspect of it, but I just want to go back to a few things you said because one thing that really stuck out to me is like you talk about this like burning passion. And I think a
Yeah,
lot of us feel this, but we suppress it because we look at that like sense of certainty, the sense of safety that we have a paycheck coming in, or maybe, like you've invested all this time into a field and you're like, okay, I don't want to waste that time and money that I spent doing that. I should just stay. And can
yeah.
you talk about like, did you just naturally follow that intuition, that inner guidance, or was that something you had to really cultivate? Because so many of us can get stuck in like what the external world is telling us to do and really ignore that inner voice.
Absolutely. And I think we were and have been programmed to do that. So the desire is something that in most cases we are taught,
Mhm,
maybe even if not directly and verbally, it's just the underlying, belief system and shared values, or that um the desire is not something that we should cultivate and we
mhm,
should follow, and that should be the leading voice in our life, or even,
mhm,
and we should even suppress it, really, like we should not only be, yeah, like it's wrong, right? Like there's
mhm,
something wrong with that. But actually desire is life seeking expression through us, and it's seeking expression through us on the lower kind of physical level, and that's our sexual desires and our other, yeah, bodily desires. It's basically life seeking expression through us in that way, right?
mhm,
Uh, expressing expanding and reproducing more life through
mhm,
the physical desire that we experience as humans, and other species as well. But us as humans, we feel other desires too. We receive, it's not even feel, we feel it when we are tuned into that. We
mhm,
receive the ideas, just like we receive, physical seeds that can then, following our desire, can be turn into new humans, right? So
mhm,
life is extending and evolving. We also receive ideas, and we
mhm,
receive them from, now we can call it in different names depending on what resonates with you the most. You can call it God, you can call it spirit, you can call it universe, you can call it the unified field. It's the same thing. These are frequencies. So if we want to go more scientific, these are frequencies in the field that we as humans, because of our instrument, mind, body, we receive them. We have receptors, we have an antenna literally in our brain that receives these frequencies, and these are ideas.
mhm,
And when we allow those ideas to be, cultivated, as you say, we feel a desire. That's basically the vibrational resonance with that frequency that we get to feel as a desire and as a passion and as excitement. But we were not taught all of that, even though this
mhm.
is science. This is
Yeah.
not just really cool ways to explain some spiritual, blah blah. This
Mhm,
is scientifically proven at this point. Science is catching up with all the spiritual blah blah,
mhm,
and um and we know this to be true, but not yet, like not enough, right? Just a few people know that to be true, and most people don't yet. And so we still suppress our desires, even though those desires are the most precious thing. It is life itself, pure unadulterated energy, that is seeking expression through us in the form of the idea that we received and that we are resonating with. So that's not exactly the answer to the question that you asked me, because you asked me more on a personal level, how did I do that? I didn't follow my passion because I understood necessarily everything that I just explained. This I understood later, and learned to explain this to myself and to others later on. I definitely didn't know all this when I was 20 and 30, and I just felt that passion and followed it. I think in that sense, I was just very lucky to have had really great, still have really great parents that they cultivated in me, I guess, the belief in myself, and and the encouragement to follow my dreams.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I heard you say a few times too is that like letting go, surrendering. And can you talk about that a little bit too? Because like so many of us are in that control phase of like fear, and then we try to control everything, but it's mutually exclusive. We either are in fear or we're in faith. And
Exactly.
so how do we move from that fear response, which is pretty rampant right now, and that's why we stay stuck, to moving into that faith of like trusting ourselves and allowing ourselves to actually surrender to that guidance and follow that?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I've learned, one of my favorite, I've worked with some really great mentors, and one of them was Bob Proctor.
Mhm.
And one of my absolute favorite sayings of Bob, and of anyone else, one of my absolute favorite sayings in general, and that was from Bob, is that fear and faith both demand of us to believe in something that hasn't yet happened. This is
Mhm.
like so simple but mind-blowing, right? Like,
Mhm.
wow, it's true.
Yeah.
If I know it, if it's already in the known, then I don't fear it. I might hate it, I might dislike it, I might resist it in any way, but there's no room for fear because I already know it. We fear what we don't know, right? It's the reaction that we have to the unknown
Mhm.
that we fear would go wrong, would be bad, would. And so both fear and faith demands of us to believe in something that hasn't yet happened. Either we believe that it's going to be bad, or we have faith and believe that it's going to be okay or better
Mhm.
than that. And it's both a belief, it's both an assumption. And so I think that's really cool to
Mhm.
realize,
Yeah.
and also very useful because
Totally.
right, because it reminds us, okay, so it's a choice.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
then what I add here that I always say is that choice, because I say it's a choice, but someone might hear me say that and say, yeah, but it doesn't feel like it's a choice. I don't
Mhm.
feel like I can freely choose whether I'm going to be fearful or full of faith. It's not a choice. It's just the way I feel. It's just the way I think. It's just, yes, I understand that. But you still have a choice. It's just that the choice is a skill.
Mhm.
So our freedom is in our freedom to choose what we think and what we believe.
Mhm.
But a belief is a habit of thought. A belief is a habit of thought. It's a thought we keep thinking until it is hardwired. Physically, we can explain it as it is hard. It's a path. It's a neurological pathway in our brain that is created through that repetition. Uh, and beyond the physical, it's an energetic blueprint in the field, right? It's a thought that we keep thinking. And so what am I saying here? That we keep thinking, so that we repeat. So repetition is a skill, is something that we develop through repetition, right? So to
Mhm.
think this way, like to fear what you said, right, in your question, that so many of us fear, and live in that state of, what's going to happen, da da da. We are like that because it's our skill. There's no other reason. We've just been programmed to do that, and to live in survival. And that happened to us in a very young age, right? And we were not taught any better because no one around us knew any better. And everybody were like, we just were born into already a very, very condensed set of beliefs and concepts and and so on. And then it was all embedded onto our subconscious and onto our physical body, brain. And but it's still a skill. It's still something that happened through repetition. We were not born this way. So it was created, that programming process was created through repetition for the most part. And also that we were in a very hypnotic state the whole first years of our life as well. But then even that, this means that we can bring ourselves to an hypnotic state. That's what meditation does. And we can repeat certain thoughts, and we can understand where these fears and these patterns of thoughts and beliefs stem from, and we can learn the skill. And then we can change our beliefs. And so faith is a skill. Fear is a skill and faith is a skill. They are both skills. So we can develop a new skill, just like you've learned how to drive your car or how to do whatever you do now automatically without consciously thinking. You once needed to consciously think in order to do all the necessary functions in order to do that. And even things that you might not even now consider as skills, like walking, right? It's a skill. You were not born knowing how to walk, right? And you fell a million times before you got that. Now, of course, you walk. You don't need to consciously think about it, but you needed to consciously think about it, or someone to think it for you and hold your hand. And so everything is learned. Everything we've learned. We didn't come with any of our programming. So fear is just another part of it, a really big one that is very detrimental to our well-being, but still can be changed, and still we can develop the new skill of freedom to choose, and of faith. Something that I many times say, I'm from Israel. I live in Germany now for many years, but originally I'm from Israel. And so my native language is Hebrew. And in Hebrew, there are different words, like in Hebrew, there are roots to words, 2 or 3 letter roots, and different words come from the same root. That sometimes these different words are not seemingly connected in their meaning, but this reveals some connection, obviously, because they come from the same root. And so the word faith and skill and practice and art and mastery and belief, all, and trust. So your question was about letting go, which of course requires to trust. All of these words, practice, skill, faith, belief, trust, art, mastery, all of these words that are not necessarily really related in their meaning, right, are all coming from the same 3-letter root. And you know what that 3-letter root is? Amen, which is amen, the word that we all use to bless and to give thanks. So I just think that's really
so interesting.
Right. And it really reveals a fundamental truth about exactly what you asked. How do we transition from fear to faith? It's a skill. You gotta learn how to do it. You gotta practice it, and then you can master it. Faith is a skill.
So good, because it's like that transition from feeling like you're a victim of your circumstances to realizing you're the creator of your circumstances, and that you always have the power to make changes regardless of what the past brought to you or what your mindset has been for years. And so powerful to realize that. I love that. And I want to go back to your journey, because we kind of left off when you were just about to start your business. And I would love to hear that part of it, because now we're like leading up, okay, we need to trust ourselves, surrender to that, have faith in it. And now you're ready to like take the leap to do that. Can you talk about that journey, what that looked like for you?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I started working, coaching people here locally in Berlin where I live. And clients started to very low key, right? Like kind of like how I would teach music, my private students. I transitioned into coaching, but it wasn't a business yet. I just kind of word of mouth. And but then people started getting really beautiful results, and I started being more and more confident with my work. And I realized that passion that we were talking about, and that vision that I kept receiving, was of doing that in a bigger scale and reaching more people, and creating something more substantial and scalable and all of that. And so I started looking online, you know, to learn, like,
Mhm.
okay, what how we do. We go online and we search
Mhm.
and look for things and inspiration and ideas. And I got into this whole world of, online coaching and all of that. And I invested in the first program basically to learn how to start a business. I had zero experience. I was a musician for all of my adult life. So I've never even worked in someone else's business. I always worked for myself as just a private teacher and as a musician. So yeah, I invested in that first program. That was a leap of faith in and of itself, by the way, because for example, my parents that I mentioned that always really believed in me, and I needed them to help me financially to
Mhm.
finance this first course because as a musician,
Mhm.
unless
Mhm.
you're really big, and
Yeah.
I wasn't a big star, you
Mhm.
don't really make so much
Yeah.
money, right?
Mhm.
So I needed help in order to take that. That was a big leap. I needed like I think $10,000 was
Mhm.
that first program, and they were willing to help me, and they did, and I paid them back very quickly
Mhm.
because I started my business, and
Mhm.
and it was amazing. But they while being willing to help me if I really insist on doing that, they tried to talk me out of it in any way they could, because
Mhm.
for them and for me at the time, and this is pre-COVID as well, like to invest in some program of some coach in the US that I have no, who is she even? Her name was
Mhm.
Vanessa. I found her, and I resonated with whatever she put out there, and but like that was not something that we were familiar with at all. It was
Mhm.
completely in the unknown. Who is this person? What is this online? Just $10,000, just like that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they looked online for to see if she's a scam, and they sent me and my husband separately in parallel
Oh my God.
screenshots of things.
Oh,
You know? So this
yeah.
also answers another question that you asked earlier, right? Or like what other people say, and I was like, no, I feel it, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel it. This is it. I
Mhm.
need to work. This is what I need to do. I was so clear that this is my next step, and so thankfully they helped me. And then yeah, my mindset was so strong on succeeding,
Mhm.
and to take action. As I said, like I was always like that. That's just part of my personality. So that helped me at first, right? Because I went in there and I did everything the coach said, and then when you do everything the coach said, if they're a good coach, then you get results, right?
Mhm.
I got results, and my goal was 10K a month, and 6 figures in the first year to cross that 6 figure mark, and I did it,
Yeah.
which was amazing. But
Yeah.
it was amazing. It was amazing. But I'm already
Mhm.
going to take the next step on my story because it's a really
Mhm.
important one.
Yeah.
Did all that based on the mindset that I already had.
Mhm.
But apparently, I discovered that after that first year, my mindset allowed me to reach success because I was a go getter and a hustler and all of that, but exactly like this,
Mhm.
hustling. And
Mhm.
and in my belief system that I wasn't completely aware of at the time because I never went for success. I worked on other areas, healing my body and in relationships and all kinds of things. But with money
Mhm.
and financial success and business success, that was never something that I was dealing with. So
Mhm.
this came up and was revealed to me through that experience that was a very challenging one because I wasn't aware that I was operating on an outdated subconscious program and belief system of sacrificing for success and needing to
Mhm.
prove myself and all of that. And so I burned out
Mhm.
really, really bad, like
Mhm.
really bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen at first. So I kept on going, kept on going, kept on going, and ignored all
Mhm.
the signs and all the signals from my body and my my emotional well-being that was
Mhm.
increasing rapidly, until I had to. It's just like
Mhm.
the symptoms were so severe, in my skin,
Mm.
and I had to really stop everything and release the team that I already had and stop the marketing and the advertisement and everything. I couldn't bring in more clients. I just continued serving those that I had.
Mhm.
I really slowed down. And that's when I realized, okay, I have a great mindset for like taking action and all that. That's not where I need to be focused. Like
Mhm.
many people do. I don't,
Yeah.
but I have other things that I need to update so I can so I can create, bring my vision into life of the success and the impact, because I would never get there in a
Mhm.
sustainable and scalable way if I don't update that subconscious program that I was operating on. And then I
Mhm.
really started investing in, not in learning how to do the business,
Mhm.
but in how to upgrade myself.
Mm.
Then I
Yeah.
restarted and exceeded those goals, but really I've learned how to do that from a completely different level of awareness and vibration, and it really upgraded, of course, my teaching and what I was
Mhm.
able to and am able to give to others through this experience. So yeah, I went a little bit beyond your question, original
No, I
question.
appreciate it because just hearing that because that's so much resonates with me, and I know it's gonna resonate with so many people who listen to this because I think that's one thing we often, especially with social media, you're watching a lot of different resources, and a lot of them are push harder, go harder, do more calls, more this.
Oh
It's
yeah.
always like more, 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 more. And if you're someone who is that like type A go getter, you're like, it's so easy to be like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, and you're like scrambling and you're like, when is it going to be enough? But it's like, it is for that person who is also me. Like, it's like realizing like, okay, you're doing enough. You need to like have flow in it and allow yourself to do it at a balanced pace. And it's like not always listening to those external voices that maybe, some people do need those messages, but if you're not one of them, it can be so detrimental to you.
Oh yes,
So
exactly. So
yeah.
exactly, like that's just that you've hit the nail on the head.
Hmm.
I remember like every time I would go, I would invest in another program, and the coach
Yeah.
would say, "So now go,"
Yes.
and then I would go to my husband like, "He said go." At
Mm.
that point, I was already aware, but still,
Hmm.
like it still triggers, right? So
Yeah.
he said that we should do all these things, and I know I
Yep.
shouldn't. I know it was not meant for me, but like he said it,
Hmm.
and but it's not
Yeah.
for me. It was meant for everybody else, right? And my husband, yes,
Mhm.
yes, that was not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you really have to know yourself to know like this is not aligning because it's so easy, especially when you've seen success and then you had to kind of let some of that go. It's like you want that back and it's like you're willing to do whatever it takes. So it's a really challenging thing of like listening
Yeah.
to your internal voice when the outside world is screaming to you, the numbers are screaming to you. It's like it's
Yeah,
such a challenge.
it
Yeah.
is. And the thing is that you won't like, even if you decide, okay, I'm going to sacrifice again,
Yeah.
you're not going to get for the success, right? And then I'll rest or whatever. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. Like you won't reach that success because that's not how you create. Like you create the gaps that we have externally in our
Mhm.
physical reality are only expressions of internal gaps that we have. And if we don't close the vibrational gap and we operate on a frequency of pushing and
Mhm.
resisting and all of that, and fear, that's also survival. It's
Mhm.
based anyway.
Yeah.
So even if on the outside it doesn't look like there's something to fear, and it's still fear based in some way, and it comes from a place of lack and limitation. So it's not
Mhm.
going to create results of abundance and freedom if you're
Right.
operating on a frequency of lack and limitation. That's
Mhm.
just the law, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah.
For someone who's listening to this and they're like, it's me, that's me. Like, I'm that person who, maybe they're in the thick of that exhaustive period and they're like, how much more can I do? I'm already like overwhelmed. What would be the next step to move into that abundance mindset where they can start to feel more faith in their life and start those practices?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think stories are really precious.
Hmm.
So I will just add, to the story that I've shared,
Hmm.
that when I was
Yeah.
exactly at that point that you were asking about, and I slowed down, okay, I regained balance and health, but then
Hmm.
I wanted to go back to building my business. Like I didn't give
Hmm.
up on my dream. I
Hmm.
was so um scared, or like I really wasn't willing to get to go to burnout again. Like that was
Hmm.
so traumatic, and also such a big lesson.
Hmm.
I like, no, I'm not gonna miss dinners with my kid and my family. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be the mom that is always on a call.
Hmm.
I'm not doing that. And I'm not, I had terrible skin. I have still scars from the skin condition that I had. So this, is a constant reminder. And then I started picking up, and that's when I started working with Bob Proctor. And
Hmm.
I kept asking that question on the calls, on the coaching
Hmm.
calls. And this was like calls for me, right? And I was
Hmm.
like, how can I get back and follow my dream and restart my business? Like, I really want to do this. The passion is there, but I'm
Hmm.
not willing to go back to those old patterns. And I don't know how. I don't know
Hmm.
how to go after the dream and bring it into reality and follow the passion, but not like, I was really, really concerned that I would go back to those patterns. And then when I started, working more, then if I had a few days that were more, busy and such, then
Hmm.
my skin started giving me the signals. And then so at first I was like, okay, every time I have these signals from my body, this tells me I need to slow down again.
Hmm.
Yeah, but no.
Hmm.
And so here is where, like, I'm also getting to your question of how. It's very deep work though, right? Like, without the mentors that I worked with at the time, I wouldn't have cracked this code. Because
Hmm.
when I thought I got it, like, okay, I
Hmm.
have my skin, I learned my lesson, every time it gives me the signals, I'm going to slow down. But that was not satisfactory, because I was still like in a catch 22. Because
Hmm.
yeah, every time I work just a little bit more, my skin gives me the signal and I'm slowing down. But I want to work more. Like,
Hmm.
I love what I do. I'm passionate about this. I have a big dream. I want to work more, but not burn out. Like, it was a catch 22. And then, thanks to a really good mentor that I worked with, together with Bob, um, I realized that there is something there to up level.
Hmm.
Like, yes, while I was burning out before all this, before I restarted, the skin was the expression of that.
Hmm.
But now I'm not there anymore. I'm not the same person anymore. And the skin, those signals from the skin are now have a different meaning.
Hmm.
And it's just a reminder, I can work a lot. But the question is, in what frequency I'm working on. What is the self-image that I'm embodying as I'm taking all the action? You know, because, for example, when I was a musician and I would, record all night or whatever, I never burned out. Why?
Hmm.
Because it wasn't about proving myself. It wasn't about financial, it wasn't attached to money, all kinds of things that I needed to upgrade my belief system and my self-concept and all of those things to really upgrade the level of awareness and embodiment and frequency that I was operating on. So it wasn't about working less necessarily. It sometimes, but it's not about, okay, did I work 3 hours or 5 hours or 5 days or 4 days? It was about, who am I as I'm taking those actions, and if I'm operating from a place of lack or from a place of abundance. And that was a huge game changer for me, a huge
Yeah.
game changer. And it really freed me and
Hmm.
liberated me. And then I was able to, okay, start doing all the things that I'm so passionate about and work with my body as its master, and
Hmm.
not as its, I don't know, like, every time it says
Yeah.
you can't go, I need to listen. Yes, we want to listen to our
Hmm.
body, but we also want to master the body, because the body
Hmm.
is the instrument, not vice versa. So we want to listen to it so we can regain control and leadership. Yeah. And yeah. So
Yeah, so powerful recognizing that difference in the frequency of like the scarcity versus abundance mindset, like game changer. And I just want to like go in a little bit further because for someone who's like looking at their external world and like their bank account is low, they maybe don't have clients coming in and they're like, okay, how do I get into an abundance mindset when my external world is telling me it's not? Can you dive into that?
yes, that's a big question and a very tricky thing, right?
Hmm.
Excuse me. Um, so we want to remember one very important universal law that is called the law of cause and effect. Emerson called it the law of laws. And it decrees that everything has a cause and an effect, right? And we want to remember that the cause is always internal, right? Because the nucleus of everything is its energetic blueprint, right? It's like everything in the physical world is an expression or a materialization of an energetic blueprint. And again, we know that this is scientifically proven. So what create the vibrational blueprint, the energetic blueprint, is our thought patterns, those thought patterns that we were talking about. And so one of those thought patterns that we are all programmed with for the most part is to rely on physical evidence and to give all of our attention to the external physical evidence, again, for our survival. And so we see our bank account and it's giving us an evidence of lack. And so we give it even more attention, more focused attention, because we need to survive this lack. And so we perpetuate it, because whatever we give our attention to is what we create, right? And so that's not a good loop, but it's really hard to break through. That's basically your question. And so, you know, another thing that I love that Bob said was faith based on understanding is the key to freedom. So we already talked about faith, but it's not just blind faith that we're talking about. It's faith based on understanding. So when you understand the universal laws, you can start developing that faith that, remember, we said is a skill, right? And so many times I compare this law, the cause and effect, to the law of gravity, right? So when we were born, we had no idea of neither, right? And if it was up to us, we would walk off the table if we are on the table, or out of the window if it's open. Like, we had no understanding of the universal law of gravity. So someone else had to first think for us and make sure that we don't do any of those things, otherwise we will not survive. And then teach us and repeat to us, watch out, hold on here, look here, don't go there. Through that repetition in those early years, until we've learned the law of gravity. And now we don't need to consciously think not to step out of the window. That is even almost like, it's ridiculous that I even say that, right? Like, what do you mean? Yeah, but at some point, a few years ago, maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe 50 years ago, we did need to consciously think, or someone needed to consciously think it for us, right? So it's through that programming process in those early years, repetition, that we then learned about it. So now we don't need to consciously think to operate according to it for our survival and well-being, right? Law of gravity.
Yeah.
So the thing is that nobody during those years or ever since taught us about the law of cause and effect. But it is as detrimental to our survival too, but we just don't know about it. So we don't operate in harmony with it. If we were not programmed to operate with the law of gravity in harmony for the sake of our survival and well-being, we would jump off the window. But we don't, and we don't need to even consciously think about it. So we are kept well and surviving physically. But we can compare it like we keep jumping off windows when we look at our bank account, and we let that determine our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. It's the same thing. It's jumping off the window, because we are operating with the law of cause and effect. That is a universal law, just like the law of gravity. It works every single time. It is a law, but we are not aware of it. Now, maybe if one is already studying this material and is into, you know, manifestation and all of that, maybe this is not the first time you hear this, and you already know that you're not supposed to give your attention, and where attention goes, energy flows. Yes, amazing. This is good. This is good. But it takes still a lot of repetition to really, because you still need to consciously think. Like, if you look at the bank account and you see the lack, and this makes you feel fearful or stressed, and then it affects your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and you're not following your passion, which is life guiding you on the path of your well-being. If you don't do that, if you don't follow that, and then it means that even though you understand what I just said, it hasn't been programmed. You need to continue consciously think about it. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, you are aware that if you jump up like babies or little kids, even if they fall, like they hopefully not jump off the window, but even if they experience the law of gravity, they might still jump off the window. Like it takes them, even if they experience the detrimental effect of gravity, if you don't work in accordance with it, still they still need to consciously. So it's kind of like the same thing. You might have manifested bad things, let's say bad, quote unquote, right? Like things that you don't want, unwanted things, because of not operating with the universal laws in accordance, in harmony for your well-being. But still, it doesn't stop you from repeating the same self-sabotaging patterns, and that's okay. It just means that you need to continue studying this material, and you need to continue practicing. Remember, it's a skill. It's a skill.
So good. And like, I love your explanation because it just brings so much clarity to it. But yeah, I mean, I can see very much as like you learn it and you're like, okay, why isn't my life changing? But there's such a difference between being consciously aware of it and cognitively knowing it versus embodying it. That's a night and day aspect. So I really appreciate that, like you sharing that, because it just makes so much more sense. It's like, I can see that in my 2-year-old, you know, I tell him not to do something, but he's not actually following it yet. And it's like, you can very much see how that can just continue to replay the same patterns, you know, with us as adults in very different ways. So really appreciate your explanation with that. I just want to, because just for the sake of time, I just want to have you share, where are you today in your business? And then can you just share a testimonial from someone you've helped and how you've transformed their life from maybe feeling like burned out, exhausted, stuck to where they are now?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Well, first of all, I didn't transform anyone's life. Only you can transform your life.
So true.
I can only transform mine. I can't
Yeah.
even transform my son's life. I mean,
Yeah.
I can have a very big impact on that, but still, right?
Yep.
We
So
are on our
true.
individual path. So,
Mhm.
but I definitely had the honor and privilege and opportunity to support and help many people transform their lives. And so, wow, testimonial. There are actually so many. I'll give one. It's the in this. Okay, I'll give two. Let me give two. Quick one,
Yep.
because the one that comes to mind is not exactly burnout, although it's a kind of, right? It's a kind of burnout that we just have another label to it. So this is Anna, who had COVID in 2020 that turned to be a long COVID. And so it's not exactly burnout, but you can say that it is, because something in the environment of the body and the circumstances allowed that to, foster that condition. And then it reached a point where she was tied to her bed. We're talking about the years after, right? So she started working with me in 2024. So from 2020 to 2024, she was in a wheelchair, and her small kids would need to bring their toys to her bed to play with her. She couldn't work, of course. So of course they used all of their savings. So of course the bank account didn't look so great, and she was very unhappy. She gained a lot of weight. And the doctors had nothing to help to tell her, like, this is it. We don't know what to do. This is it. And which is just terrible. And she started coming to my free workshops. And this started already from the free workshops. A really big shift started happening. And she created a vision for herself of the life that she wanted, and, traveling and playing with her kids and swimming and doing all of it and working and all of those things. And then, she took a big leap of faith to join my program at some point, and she needed financial help, of course, because she exhausted all of her savings. And then she did this process that we do. And within 3 or 4 months, I remember that day when we celebrated that, the day the truck came to take her walking aids away, because
Wow.
like, I can cry when I share that.
Oh my gosh, the goosebumps.
Yeah. And and she went back to work, and She started a podcast. Now she, of course, wants to help other people in that, because that's our nature, right? That we want to
Mhm.
pass on and help others. And that's it. Like she
Mhm.
released all that weight. She loves herself and other things in her life that be way beyond that condition. Her relationship with her parents, that was even before the long COVID, she could not be sometimes in the same room with them because of all the triggering anxiety and things.
Mhm.
Just complete harmony. She restarted the relationship with her daughter, with her sister.
Mhm.
So many other aspects, of course, in her life beyond her physical health and its
Mhm.
effect on her, professional life and financial life. So that's one story. And then um there are so many. Elizabeth, who was, and this is a good example also because it's never too late. Like Elizabeth
Mhm.
was, I think, in her early 70s, late
Mhm.
60s. So you don't have to, like, it's never too
Mhm.
late, right?
Yeah.
She was with a chronic back pain, that at that point also, like, she wasn't disabled, but it was very hard for her to, like, most of the time she would just be in her couch, and she had a dream of writing a book and of singing in a band
Mhm.
and doing all kinds of things. And very quickly she did and is doing all of those things, and now she's
Mhm.
performing on stage with a rock band at
Mhm.
70, and writing her book. And her relationship with her partner, that was, almost like with hopeless, right?
Mhm.
Was, healed, and it's up, like restart renewed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, so many stories.
Mhm.
I could go on and on, really. I'm so grateful. There
Yeah.
are many stories.
Mhm. Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, because I feel like it's like through those stories, you can see yourself in other people's stories, and that just inspires you to take that next step. So I'm so grateful for everything you shared today. I feel like we could talk all day about this. And
Yes, me
for
too.
someone who wanted to connect with you and learn more about you, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, first of all, I think that in the notes for this episode, you will have a link
Mhm.
to a 3 days workshop.
Mhm.
So I run free workshops regularly, but this is a recording of one of the favorite ones. It's called All the Way to the Top. So I really recommend tapping into that. It's completely for free, and it
Mhm.
really creates a transformation if you follow it. And then, of course, you can send me a DM. We can include my IG
Mhm.
link, and you can send me a DM. You can send me specifically the word energy, and then I'll know that you come from here and that you want
Mhm.
a free meditation, and I will send
Mhm.
you one. Or you can just say hi and we'll start a conversation. But yeah, these are two next steps that I can recommend people to take if they want to connect with me or receive some more through me.
Yeah, amazing. I'll have everything in the show notes, but I'm just so grateful for everything you shared today. And I know it's just going to plant some seeds in people to really just help take the next step. That's really like profound. So many lessons here, so many ahas. And I'm just so grateful for everything you shared. So thank you
Thank
again.
thank you so much, Kelly. I'm grateful for you to have me here, and thank you for everybody listening.
Absolutely. And if you found benefit in this, share it with someone who you think also would benefit from this. It's like these messages cannot be shared enough. So again, thank you for everyone who tuned in today.